Everyone, it's Lisa here with the Cat Scrappiness Design Team. I have a card for you today using some of the products that we have just released in the shop for September. And the card I want to show you today is this coffee card. There is a fun element here on the front of the card that I made using the Fabrica drops that we have. And today I'm going to show you how to assemble the card, but I'm also going to show you how to make this this little heart-shaped element on the front. It kind of reminds me of the patterns they do when they make coffee at like Starbucks and those places, where they put a little design into the foam. So let's go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to show you the products I used in today's card. One of the products that we have, one of the stamp sets that we have in the shop this month is called Let's Get Caffeinated, and it's got some fun coffee sayings in it. So on this card I used the one that says It's Always Coffee Time, and the one that we make today I'm going to use this one that says Life Happens, Coffee Helps. Also going to use the coffee cup die set that we have. I'm going to use the stitched scallop tags, and I'm going to use the stitched scallop rectangles for this card. So just a few of the supplies that we're going to use today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by showing you how I made that, that little heart element there on the card, and then we'll get on to the assembly of the card. First thing I'm going to do is cut out a little heart shape, and all I did was just take a heart punch that I had in my stash, and this shape could really be anything that you want. I chose a heart for the front of the card just because I like hearts. But what I did was I took a little bit of double-sided tape, very, very little, and glued it down to a dark surface. I just used a little bit of double-sided tape so that I could take it off later. It would be easy to remove. And I also put it on a very dark surface so that I could tell where the edges stop and know where to stop putting down my drops. But I'm going to use two different Fabrica drops today. One is called Strong Coffee and one is called Heavenly. So I'm going to take the Strong Coffee drops and I'm going to put down a generous layer all over the heart for starters. And don't be afraid to really squeeze some of this out. It takes a lot to get good coverage. And it's important to get it right to the edges so that you don't see any white. And it's okay if it goes over onto your dark cardstock in the back, because you're going to be peeling it away later. The only thing you want to do is make sure that you don't have any bubbles in it. Make sure it's you've got smooth coverage. And if you don't get the Fabrica drops right to the edges, you can take a pin and just kind of bring it out a little bit so that it comes to the edges. And you're also going to need a pin to make that little heart pattern that I showed you in the first one. So once you have a nice layer down, I just keep a washcloth close by so I can clean off my pin. So the next part, here's where the magic happens. You're going to take your next color, which I have, it's called Heavenly. It's a really nice light blue color. I thought it matched the background of the card really well. And let's just get that last bubble out. Okay. So these drops are really nice to work with. They're very forgiving. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your second color and you're going to drop very small circles. You're just going to touch the tip of the brown and put very small circles around the edge of the heart, all the way around. And you don't want to squeeze too hard. You just want to squeeze enough so that that second color almost just kisses that first color, and then it kind of sits on the surface of the first color. Don't let this part stress you out too much because we're going to wind up dragging a pin through it. So don't worry if your circles are perfect or not. And what you want to do now when you've got your circles down is you want to take your pin and you're going to drag your pin right through the center of the circles. Isn't that cool? Oh my gosh, I just love this effect. And it makes little hearts. It's easier if you turn it. And it's just going to make little hearts out of all those little circles that you just dropped down. I just love that effect. That is so cool. And there are so many different colors of these Fabrica drops in the shop that you can really go crazy. If you there's a lighter color one called Jasmine, so it looks a little more like the foam on the coffee. I just don't have that color, but I thought that this color scheme went well with the card. And what you need to do is, obviously it's very thick and it's very wet, so it really does need to be put aside so that it can dry overnight, and not in a place where your cat can jump on it. Ask me how I know. But eventually when it does dry, you're going to get this really slick, shiny, finished product. And I don't know, I think that's just a really neat embellishment for your card that you don't come across very often. Actually cannot take credit for this. I saw a video quite a while back, a woman named Olga who did this technique on a card of hers, and I will link to her YouTube channel if you want to check that video out later. So anyway, with your embellishment all made, you're going to want to put that aside to dry. I'm going to show you how to put together the coffee cup because there's a lot of little pieces that go with it. So what I did is I cut out a piece of pattern paper. This is just some polka dot paper from my stash. It's from Paper Tray, and I used the rectangle scallop die for that. So let's go ahead and put that down. Usually my glue of choice is my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. It's really nice. Works for almost everything, and it doesn't warp the paper, which is nice. So this is going to be the base of my card, and basically, and all I did was cut a craft colored card base. It's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Glue that down, and then we can work on the coffee cup. The coffee cup, the base of the coffee cup, I cut out of some pattern paper also from my stash. I will show it to you, but it's pretty old. I don't even know if it's available anymore, but it's by K & Company, and there's some beautiful papers in here. So I really liked this pattern with the script all over it. And what I did for all the pieces of the coffee cup is I inked the edges just so that they would stand out on the card. So I've already inked the edges of the coffee cup and the top. And this is the little koozie part of the cup that gets cut out and put on the card. And what I did is I actually sent it through my paper crimper, also a pretty old product that I have in my stash. But Fiskars makes this really cool paper crimper. So what I did is I put it through there so that it gives kind of a realistic effect for the koozie on the cup. And I inked the edges of that. The other thing I did was I stamped the sentiment onto one of the stitched scallop tags. So I'll go ahead and ink that one now, just so that everything on the front of the card is all inked up. And I'm just using some ground espresso distress ink, which I actually also used to stamp the sentiment onto the tag. And I just like to ink the edges of little embellishments on my card. I think it just makes them stand out so much more. So once that's done, we can go ahead and assemble the coffee cup. And what I'm going to do with that embellishment that I made earlier is actually put it onto the koozie on the cup when it's all dry. Okay, so let's start with assembling the coffee cup. The first thing I'm going to do is take the cover of the coffee cup and glue this piece onto it. I've got my Gina K Connect glue. Just a little bit on the edges. I'm sorry, on the back. And then I always have a tweezer nearby so that I can put on these tiny pieces. I think it's a lot easier with a tweezer. And you're going to lay that right across the top of the coffee cup, and I find that it's easier if I line it up with the 2 notches at the top of the card, at the top of the cover of the card. So these 2 notches here, if I lay it right along there, it usually ends up in a good spot. And then you're going to take these 2 pieces, and what I do is I glue the outer piece down first. This is the top of the, this goes on the, where's my words? On the top of the cover, and it kind of makes it look like the top of the cup, almost so that you can see some coffee inside. So this is going to get glued down to the top. No. This is why I don't do videos. And then I just put a little glue down in the middle so I can place this piece inside. I don't know, I guess to me it looks like that's the spot where you'd look inside the cup and see some coffee. And then once the top of the coffee cup is put together, I'm going to glue it to the cup itself. So I thought I would just put all the little pieces together for you on camera, just in case you have any trouble figuring out where all the little pieces go. There's a lot of little die cuts with this set, but I think it really adds to the realistic look of this cup. And then I'll go ahead and put the koozie down. And like I said, we're going to add that really cool embellishment to it when it dries. And the coffee koozie I usually line up. You can see there's two spots on either side of the coffee cup that kind of protrude out a little bit. So I usually line the koozie up with that spot right on the cup. And then the little tag that I stamped the sentiment on is going to go on here as well. And what I did on the original card is I made a twine bow for this sentiment. But what I like to do is not just use one piece of twine, I like to use a few pieces so it's a more full looking bow. So what I do is I unravel just a bunch of twine. And then what I do is I take the twine and I match it up, and then I double it, and then I fold it again. So I fold it a few times, so I've got quite a few pieces of twine all together the same size, and just make a bow out of it. And then of course just play with it until you get it the size that you want. I'm going to snip the ends off, and it's going to go right on top of the sentiment there. So what I like to do is pop up the elements on the card. So I'm going to take some foam tape, pop up the coffee cup on the card, and a little tag. And then a little bit of glue for the bow. And that's what the card looks like all finished. Of course, when the element that I made earlier dries completely, I will peel it off the card, and hopefully it won't be too hard to get off because, like I showed you, I only glued down just the middle of it. So I should be able to bend the cardstock back and peel it off. The only thing you want to do is make sure that you don't push too hard on the finished piece because it is kind of tacky and it will have your fingerprint in it forever. Ask me how I know that one as well. So basically when it dries, I'm going to adhere to the koozie, and the finished card will then look like this. You can actually see that this one has a little bit of indentation in it, so like I said, you have to be really careful with it even when it's dry because it remains tacky. So that is the card for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you'll give this technique a try. It really is a lot of fun, and like I said, there is a lot of different colors of these Fabrica drops in the shop that you can play with. So many different combinations, and I think a really neat look would be is if you had a die cut of a coffee cup and you can fill the entire top of the coffee cup with the drops and then make it look like there was a design actually in the coffee cup. So I think that's something I'm going to have to try as well. So thank you so much for joining me. I will link all the products that I used on the card below in the description, and just remember, if you use my code Lisa10 in the shop, you can save 10% on anything you purchase. And one more side note, we do have a monthly challenge going on our blog, and this month the theme of the challenge is wine. We have some really great new a wine stamp set and wine dies in the shop, so if you get a chance, check out the challenge and come play along with us. That's it for today. If you have any questions about the card, leave me a comment below. Alright, you guys, have a great day. Bye-bye.